My 7-year-old grandson, Mason, just whispered something to me that tore my soul in two. We just watched Jessica leave for work barely 10 minutes ago, when he walked up to me with those huge eyes full of fear and pulled my arm toward his bedroom. "Grandma, we can't stay here at the house," he told me, his voice cracking. "This morning I heard my dad and mom planning something bad for you." I felt as if the floor were opening up beneath my feet. I looked at my grandson and saw that he was trembling, that his little hands were squeezing my arm with desperation, that he wasn't making anything up. This child had heard something terrible, and now he was trusting me with it. "Mason, what exactly did you hear?" I asked him, trying to stay calm even though my heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. He opened his mouth to answer, but then we heard something that made our blood run cold. The front door burst open. Jessica was back. But she was not alone. I heard her voice, and the voice of a man I had never heard before. They were speaking in low, urgent tones and coming straight down the hallway where we were. I grabbed Mason by the hand, and we ran toward the coat closet in the hallway, the only place we could hide. We got in, and I closed the door just in time. Now we are here, squashed between winter coats that smell like mothballs and old boxes. I have my hand over Mason's mouth, and he is pressed against my chest, shaking like a leaf. Through the narrow slit between the closet doors, I can see them. Jessica is wearing that gray dress she always wears to go to work, but she clearly didn't go to any office. The man next to her is tall, has dark hair slicked back, and is wearing a black suit. There is something about the way they move together, something too familiar, too intimate, that makes my stomach turn. He says something about tonight, and Jessica replies that yes, everything has to go perfectly, that they cannot make mistakes. My legs are asleep, folded in this impossible position, but I don't dare move even a millimeter. Jessica's cloying perfume floats in the air, mixing with the smell of old wood from the closet. The man asks if I am home, and Jessica says no, that I went out with Mason to buy something at the grocery store. Mason tenses up against me because he knows his mom just lied. We are here, hidden less than 10 feet from them, and she doesn't even know it. "We need to act fast," the man says. "We have already waited too long, and every day that passes is a risk." Jessica sighs and says she knows, that she is tired of waiting, of pretending, of acting like the perfect daughter-in-law. Then they say something else, something about plans and timing, but they speak so low that I barely manage to catch fragments. They mention loose words that make my skin crawl. Tonight, no witnesses. It has to look natural. They walk away toward the living room, and their voices become a distant murmur. I wait 1, 2, 3 eternal minutes until I hear the front door close again. The silence that follows is deafening. We step out of the closet, and Mason is crying silently, with wet cheeks and trembling lips. "Grandma, we have to go," he says, clinging to my arm. "Please, we have to leave now." I hug him tight and tell him yes, that we are going to leave. But first I need him to tell me everything he knows. "Take a deep breath, sweetie," I say, stroking his hair. "Tell me exactly what you heard this morning." But to really understand what is happening, to comprehend how I arrived at this moment of absolute terror, I need to go back to the beginning. I need to tell you how all this started just 3 days ago, when I arrived at this house with my suitcase and a smile, not knowing I was walking straight into a trap. 3 days ago, I knew nothing. 3 days ago, everything seemed normal. It was Monday morning when the Uber dropped me off in front of my son Daniel's house, a pretty 2-story house with a front lawn and a white picket fence that had always looked to me like it was pulled from a magazine. I rang the doorbell, and Daniel opened the door with that smile that always melts my heart. "Mom, it's so good you're here," he said, hugging me tight. "Jessica is finishing getting your room ready. Mason won't stop asking when you're arriving." I walked in carrying my small suitcase and looked around. Everything looked spotless. The furniture well arranged, the family photos on the walls, the smell of lavender that always characterizes this house. But there was something in the air, something I couldn't identify at that moment. An invisible tension, like a cable about to snap. Jessica appeared from the hallway, drying her hands on a kitchen towel. She was wearing jeans and a cream-colored blouse, her brown hair pulled back in a high ponytail. "Eleanor, so nice to see you," she said, kissing my cheek, but her lips barely grazed my skin. There was something mechanical in her gesture, something rehearsed. "Where is my precious grandson?" I asked, looking toward the stairs. As if summoned by my voice, Mason appeared running and threw himself into my arms with such force he almost made me stumble. "Grandma, Grandma," he shouted with that pure energy only 7-year-olds have. "I missed you so, so, so much." I hugged him, breathing in that smell of green apple shampoo and dirt that he always has from playing outside. This was my grandson, my treasure, the reason I had traveled 5 hours on a bus to be here for 2 full weeks. "Come on, I'll show you my new room," Mason said, pulling me by the hand. Dad painted the walls green for me, like the Ninja Turtles. "It's awesome, Grandma. You have to see it." We went up the stairs, and sure enough, his room was painted a bright green with superhero decals everywhere. I sat on his bed, and he showed me his toys, his books, his drawings from school. He talked non-stop like only he knows how, and I listened, happy to be there with him. But then I noticed something. When he mentioned his mom, his voice changed. It became lower, more cautious. "And Mom hardly plays with me anymore," he said, looking toward the door as if to make sure no one was listening. "She says she is very busy with important things." "What kind of things?" I asked him, stroking his hair. He shrugged his shoulders. "I don't know, Grandma. She is always on her computer or talking on the phone. And when Dad gets home, sometimes they argue, but quietly so I don't hear. But I do hear, Grandma. They talk about money and things I don't understand." My heart tightened a little. Marital problems were common, I knew, but something about the way Mason said it unsettled me. Before I could ask him more, Jessica called us from downstairs for dinner. Dinner was strange. The 4 of us sitting around the table, eating roast chicken with vegetables that Jessica had prepared. Daniel talked about his job at the construction firm, about a new project for residential buildings. Jessica nodded and smiled, but her eyes were lost somewhere far away. "And you, Jessica? How is your job going?" I asked, trying to make conversation. She looked at me surprised, as if she had forgotten I was there. "Oh, good, good," she replied curtly. "Lots of paperwork? You know how accounting firms are." "How long have you been working there?" I asked innocently. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. 3 years, she said, but there was something fake in her tone, something that didn't fit. Daniel didn't seem to notice. He was focused on his food and telling me about the plans he had to take Mason to the park on the weekend. My son was always distracted, always trusting. He was never one of those people who suspect or question, and maybe that was exactly what someone could take advantage of. That night, after putting Mason to bed, I stayed awake in the guest room looking at the ceiling. Something didn't add up, but I didn't know what exactly. It was just a feeling, a tingling on the back of my neck telling me to pay attention. At 2 in the morning, I heard voices. I got up in silence and opened my door just a crack. Daniel and Jessica were in the hallway arguing in whispers. "We can't go on like this," Daniel was saying. "The expenses are out of control, Jessica. The credit card is maxed out, and I don't know where that charge for $2,000 from last month came from." "I already told you it was for work clothes," Jessica replied, annoyed. "I need to look professional, Daniel. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "Professional for what? If you work from home half the time?" Daniel said. Jessica stayed silent and then murmured something I didn't manage to hear. They went to their room and closed the door. I went back to my bed with a restless heart. $2,000 on clothes. Working from home? Something was definitely not right. The next morning I woke up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee. I went downstairs and found Jessica already dressed in that same gray dress she was wearing today when she came back with that man. "I have an important meeting," she said without looking me in the eye, while checking her phone. "I'll be late, so don't wait up for me for dinner." Daniel had already left for work, and Mason was eating cereal at the kitchen table with his feet dangling from the chair. Jessica gave him a quick kiss on the forehead, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door, leaving a trail of that cloying perfume that was already starting to bother me. As soon as we heard the car drive away, Mason dropped his spoon into the bowl. The sound of metal against ceramic resonated in the silent kitchen. "Grandma," he told me with a seriousness that a 7-year-old shouldn't have, "I need to tell you something." "What's wrong, my love?" I asked him, sitting next to him and taking his small hand in mine. He looked toward the door as if to make sure we were alone, and then looked at me with those dark eyes so similar to Daniel's. "Mom lies," he said in a low voice. "She doesn't go to any office. The other day I got out of school early because I felt sick to my stomach, and the teacher called Mom to pick me up. But Mom didn't answer the phone. Then they called the office where she supposedly works, and they said they didn't know any Jessica." I felt a chill run down my back. "Are you sure about that, Mason?" He nodded his head. "The principal told me, Grandma. She said it was strange. In the end, they had to call Dad, and he left work to pick me up." "And did you tell your dad this?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. Mason shook his head. "Mom told me that if I told Dad something bad was going to happen, she said Dad would get very sad and that maybe he would leave the house and I wouldn't see him again." My blood boiled. That woman was manipulating my grandson, threatening him so he would keep her secrets. "Mason, my love," I told him, squeezing his hands, "none of that is your fault, and your dad is never going to leave you. Do you understand? Never." "But there is more, Grandma," he said, his voice breaking. "Sometimes, when Mom thinks I'm asleep, I hear her talking on the phone. She talks to someone and laughs differently, not like when she talks to Dad, and she says things like, 'Soon we are going to be together,' or 'It won't be long now.' My God. Jessica was having an affair, and my poor son had no idea. I decided in that moment that I needed to find out what was really happening. I wasn't going to let that woman destroy my family. "Mason, go play in your room," I told him. "I'm going to make lunch, and then we're going to do something fun. Okay?" He nodded and went up the stairs, dragging his feet. My heart broke seeing him so sad, so burdened with secrets he shouldn't carry. I stayed alone in the kitchen, and my mind started to work. If Jessica was lying about her job, then where was she going every day? And who was she talking to on the phone? I needed answers. I went up to the second floor stealthily. The door to Daniel and Jessica's room was closed, but not locked. I entered feeling like an intruder in my own son's house, but I knew I had to do it. The room was spotless, too spotless. The bed perfectly made, the furniture without a speck of dust. I opened the drawer of the nightstand on the side where I guessed Jessica slept. Inside there were creams, a magazine, some sleeping pills. Nothing unusual. I tried the closet. Her clothes hung ordered by color. I checked the pockets of her blazers and coats. In one, I found a crumpled receipt. It was from an expensive restaurant. The date was from 2 weeks ago. 2 people. The total bill was $350. Daniel would never spend that much on a dinner. He has always been careful with money. And according to this receipt, the dinner had been on a Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon. Work hours. I put the receipt in my pocket and kept looking. In the back of the closet, behind some shoeboxes, I found something else. A cell phone. It wasn't the one Jessica used normally. This one was older, with a worn black case. I turned it on and it didn't have a passcode. My hands were trembling while I checked the messages. There were dozens of conversations with someone saved as T. The messages were explicit, romantic, and talked about future plans. My stomach turned while I read. "Almost there, baby," said one of the messages from 3 days ago. "We just need to be patient a little longer. When we have the money, we can go far away and start over," Jessica's reply said. "I am tired of waiting, Trent. I am tired of pretending with Daniel. Every night I have to sleep next to him makes me nauseous. Trent, that was the man's name. And they were planning something that involved money. A lot of money. I kept scrolling down the conversations and found something that froze me to the bone. A message from Trent from a week ago. "I already investigated everything. Your mother-in-law, Eleanor, has a property worth approximately $800,000, plus savings that hover around $200,000. Daniel is an only child, so when she dies, everything passes to him automatically. And since you are his wife, legally, you have a right to half in case of divorce. But it would be easier if..." The message cut off there. Easier if what? My hands were sweating while I held that phone. They were talking about my money, my properties. They were investigating me as if I were a target, a victim. I heard a noise downstairs. Footsteps. Someone had entered the house. I put the phone back in its hiding place, closed the closet, and left the room as fast as I could. I went down the stairs trying to look casual. It was Daniel. I forgot some blueprints, he said, smiling. Hi, Mom. Everything good? I nodded my head, faking a smile. Everything is perfect, son. I was going to make lunch. He went into his study, grabbed some rolled-up papers, and left again. I'm going to be late today, he said from the door. There is an inspection at the site. Don't wait up for me for dinner. He left and I stayed there, standing in the middle of the living room, with my heart beating in my ears. Mason came down the stairs. Grandma, did Dad leave? Yes, my love. He left. He came closer and hugged my waist. I'm scared, Grandma, he whispered against my stomach. Me too, sweetie, I thought, but I didn't say it out loud. I am scared too. That afternoon, while Mason did his homework, I decided to investigate more. I needed to find something concrete, something I could show Daniel to open his eyes. I searched the office Jessica supposedly used to work from home. The computer was protected with a password, but I found notebooks. In one of them, there were strange notes, numbers, accounts, names I didn't recognize. One page had written at the top plan and underneath a list. Sleeping pills, stairs. Call the doctor immediately. Act surprised. I sat in the chair feeling like I was running out of air. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. Jessica was planning something terrible, and I was in the middle without knowing it. The pieces were starting to fit together in a horrible way. The interest in my money, the lies. This man Trent. And now this macabre list. I took a photo of the page with my old cell phone. My hands were shaking so much I had to try 3 times before the image came out clear. I closed the notebook and left it exactly how I had found it. When Jessica arrived that night, I was in the living room watching television with Mason. She walked in with a radiant smile. Hello, family, she said, dropping her purse on the sofa. What a productive day I had. Jessica looked me directly in the eyes when she entered that night, and for a second I felt she could see through me, as if she knew I had been snooping in her room, touching her things, discovering her secrets. But then she smiled with that perfect smile she surely practiced in front of the mirror and asked what's for dinner. I made pasta, I replied, keeping my voice steady, although inside I was trembling. Mason is finishing his homework upstairs. She nodded and went up the stairs with her phone glued to her ear, talking in a low voice with someone. Daniel arrived an hour later, covered in cement dust and looking tired. The inspection was a disaster, he said, dropping into a chair. They are going to have to redo all the electrical installation on the 3rd floor. That means a delay, and the client is furious. I'm sorry, son, I told him, serving the pasta onto the plates. He shrugged his shoulders. It's part of the job, Mom. I wish Jessica understood that. Every time I tell her about problems at the site, she gets annoyed. Says she doesn't want to hear about negative things. I bit my tongue so as not to tell him what I really thought of his wife. It wasn't the time yet. I needed more proof, something irrefutable that she couldn't deny. We ate dinner, the 4 of us, in an uncomfortable silence. Mason pushed the food around his plate without really eating. Jessica checked her phone every 30 seconds. Daniel ate mechanically with a lost gaze, and I observed, always observing. After dinner, while Daniel bathed Mason, I went down to the kitchen to make myself some tea. Jessica was there, standing by the window, looking toward the dark street. When I entered, she was startled and hid her phone quickly. Eleanor, you scared me, she said with a nervous laugh. I was so concentrated I didn't hear you come down. She walked to the pantry and took out a box of herbal tea. This one is very good for sleeping, she said. You should try it. It will help you rest better. Thank you, I told her, taking the box but with no intention of using it. After what I had read in that notebook, I wasn't going to take anything she offered me. I watched her while she prepared her own cup, adding honey and stirring slowly. Her movements were calculated, precise, as if she were acting in a play. How much longer are you going to stay? She asked suddenly, without looking at me. Her tone was casual, but there was something sharp underneath. Daniel mentioned, you planned 2 weeks, but you know how this is. Sometimes long visits can be exhausting for everyone. I felt the stab of her words but kept my composure. Well, Jessica, I told her with my best fake smile. I thought I could stay a little longer. I miss my grandson a lot, and Daniel always says this is my house too. She squeezed the cup with such force, her knuckles turned white. Sure, she said. I just thought maybe you would have things to do at your house. We don't want you to neglect your affairs. My affairs are perfectly fine, I assured her. In fact, I asked my neighbor to pick up the mail and water the plants. I can stay as long as necessary. I saw her jaw tense. That's great, she murmured. Then I suppose we will have more time to get to know each other better. There is so much we don't know about one another, right? There was something threatening in her words, something that made my skin crawl. You're right, Jessica, I told her, holding her gaze. There is a lot we don't know, but I am sure, eventually everything comes to light. We stayed there looking at each other, like two animals evaluating which would attack first. Then Daniel came down with Mason, already in pajamas, and the moment broke. Jessica changed instantly to affectionate mom mode. Oh, my baby is already ready to sleep, she said, kissing Mason's head. You grow so fast. Mason didn't reply. He only looked at me with those pleading eyes that said, Get me out of here, Grandma. Come on, Mason, I told him, extending my hand. I'm going to tell you a story before bed. He ran toward me, and we went up the stairs together, leaving Jessica and Daniel downstairs. In his room, Mason got under the covers and hugged me tight. Grandma, I'm very scared, he whispered. Today at school, the teacher taught us about 911. She told me that if I ever felt in danger, I should call. Do you think we should call? My heart broke. I didn't want to scare him more, but I couldn't lie to him either. Listen to me well, Mason, I told him, taking his little face between my hands. If something happens, if at any moment you feel you are in danger or that I am in danger, I want you to run to the neighbor's house and call for help. Do you understand me? It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter who tells you not to do it. You do it. He nodded with tears in his eyes. But Grandma, what if Mom gets mad? What if she says I am a bad boy? You are not a bad boy, I assured him. You are the bravest and smartest boy I know. And protecting the people we love is never wrong. Never. He snuggled against me, and I told him a story about a brave knight who saved his kingdom from an evil dragon. He fell asleep before I finished. I went down the stairs and found Daniel alone in the living room. Jessica already went to sleep, he said, pointing upstairs. She says she has a migraine. I'm going too, Mom. Tomorrow I have to be at the site at 6 in the morning. He kissed my forehead and went up, leaving me alone in the gloom of the living room. I sat on the sofa and took out my phone. I needed to do something. I needed to ask for help. But who? The police would laugh at me. I had no real proof, only suspicions, a notebook with ambiguous notes and messages on a phone I shouldn't have seen. Then I remembered Patricia, my lifelong friend. Patricia, who had worked 30 years as a lawyer before retiring. Patricia, who always knew what to do in difficult situations. I wrote her a message trying to sound calm but urgent. Patricia, I need your help. I am at Daniel's house, and I think Jessica is planning something terrible. I don't know who else to turn to. Please call me when you can. I sent the message and waited. The minutes dragged like hours. Finally, at 11 at night, my phone vibrated. It was Patricia. Eleanor, what is going on? You have me worried. Tell me everything. I told her. I told her about the messages, about the notebook, about Jessica's lies, about Mason's fear. We talked for almost an hour in whispers while I paced the living room, looking constantly toward the stairs to make sure no one came down. Eleanor, this is serious, Patricia told me with a grave voice. You need solid evidence. You need that phone you found, and you need to get out of that house with Mason as soon as possible. But Daniel, I told her, I can't leave without making him understand what is happening. He is my son, Patricia. I can't leave him with that woman. I know, honey, she told me with tenderness. But first, you need to be safe. Tomorrow, I am going to contact someone who can help you. A private investigator who worked with me on several cases. His name is Vance, and he is the best at this. Meanwhile, you stay alert, don't drink or eat anything Jessica offers you, and keep Mason close. Thank you, Patricia, I sighed, feeling a bit of relief for the first time in days. I don't know what I would do without you. We are going to solve this, she promised me. But Eleanor, promise me that if you feel you are in immediate danger, you are going to get out of there immediately. Don't stay trying to be a hero. Your life is worth more than any proof. I promise, I told her, although I wasn't sure I could keep it. We hung up, and I went up to my room. I lay down fully dressed with my phone under the pillow. Sleep didn't come. Every noise put me on alert. I heard Jessica get up at 2 in the morning, her steps in the hallway, the bathroom door opening and closing, then her low voice talking to someone on the phone. I got up in silence and approached my door. I opened it just a crack. Jessica was in the hallway with her phone glued to her ear, illuminated by the glow of the screen. "I know, Trent," Jessica was saying with a tense voice, pressing the phone against her ear. "But we can't rush now. Daniel is starting to ask questions about expenses, and the old lady won't leave. She planned to stay 2 weeks, but now she says she might stay longer." Silence, while she listened to what Trent was saying on the other side. I held my breath behind my door, feeling cold sweat run down my back. The old lady, that's what she called me, as if I were a nuisance or an old piece of furniture that had to be thrown out. "Don't tell me to have patience," hissed Jessica. "I have been stuck in this marriage for 3 years, pretending I love a man who bores me to nausea. 3 years waiting for his mother to kick the bucket naturally. But the damn woman has an iron constitution. We need to act now." My heart was beating so hard I feared she could hear it. 3 years. She had planned this for 3 years. From the beginning, since she married Daniel, everything had been a calculated and cold lie. "Wednesday," Jessica decided. "Daniel has that conference in the city and is going to be out all day. We can do it on Wednesday. You come early, we make sure the kid is at school, and then we execute the plan. It will be quick, clean. A domestic accident. Old ladies fall all the time." I felt my legs shaking. Wednesday. That was the day after tomorrow. She was giving me an expiration date as if I were sour milk. 2 more days of life if I didn't do something. Jessica walked toward her room and closed the door softly. I waited 5 full minutes before daring to move. I went back to my bed and sat in the dark, trying to process what I had just heard. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It wasn't suspicions anymore. It was real, concrete, and immediate. I took out my phone and wrote to Patricia. "I need that investigator now. Jessica plans to do it on Wednesday. I need to get out of here with Mason, but first I need proof that destroys that woman." Patricia's answer came 10 minutes later. "Vance is going to contact you tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, pack a small bag with essentials for you and Mason. Leave it hidden, ready to run if necessary. And Eleanor, be very careful." I didn't sleep at all that night. I stayed sitting in bed, watching the darkness turn slowly into a pale gray and then into the golden light of dawn. I heard when Daniel got up at 5:30. I heard the shower, his steps going down the stairs, the door closing when he left for work. At 7, Mason touched my door softly. "Grandma," he whispered. "Can I come in?" I opened it, and he came in quickly, closing it behind him. "Last night I heard Mom talking on the phone," he said with his eyes wide open. "She was talking about you, Grandma. She was saying ugly things." "I know, my love," I told him, hugging him. "I know, but we are going to be okay. You are going to have to be very brave today. Very strong. I need you to go to school like always. Act normal. But after school, I am going to be waiting for you outside, and we are going to go together to a safe place." "And Dad?" asked Mason. "Are we going to leave Dad here with Mom?" "No, my life. We are going to help Dad too. But first, we need to get help from people who know how to handle this." "Do you trust me?" He nodded. "I always trust you, Grandma. You are the bravest person I know." His words gave me strength. We went down together to have breakfast. Jessica was already in the kitchen preparing Mason's lunchbox. "Good morning," she sang with that fake voice so sweet it made me want to vomit. "Did you sleep well, Eleanor? You look tired." "Very well, thank you," I lied, pouring myself coffee. "I'm just a little used to my own bed, you know." She smiled, showing all her teeth. "Well, if you want to leave earlier, there's no problem. I know Daniel would understand. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable." "How considerate you are, Jessica," I told her with my best sweet grandma smile. "But I wouldn't leave for anything in the world. I am enjoying this time with my family very much." I saw her smile tense up. "Perfect," she said through her teeth. "Then I suppose you will be here a while longer." The doorbell rang, interrupting our silent war. Jessica frowned. "Who can it be so early?" she murmured, walking toward the door. She opened it, and I heard a deep and calm male voice. "Good morning, ma'am. I am looking for Mrs. Eleanor. I am Vance, private investigator. We have an appointment." My heart jumped. Patricia had worked fast. Jessica turned toward me with eyes full of suspicion and something that looked like fear. "Eleanor, do you know this man?" I stood up, smoothing my blouse, and walked toward the door with all the dignity I could muster. "Yes, Jessica, I know him. Mr. Vance is helping me with a legal matter related to my property. I thought it would be good to take advantage of the fact that I am here to resolve some pending items." Vance was a man of about 50, tall with gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore a simple but clean suit and carried a worn leather briefcase. "Good morning, Mrs. Eleanor," he said, shaking my hand. "I apologize for the time, but as I mentioned on the phone, I have a very tight schedule today." "No problem," I told him, playing along. "We can talk in the living room." "Jessica, I need privacy for this. It's legal matters." She pursed her lips but nodded. "Sure. Mason, finish your breakfast. We have to leave in 15 minutes for school." Vance and I sat in the living room. He opened his briefcase and took out a small recorder. "Your friend Patricia filled me in on everything," he said in a low voice. "I need you to tell me in your own words exactly what you have seen and heard. Every detail matters." I told him everything. The messages on the secret phone, the notebook with the plan, the conversation I heard last night about Wednesday, Mason and his fears, the strange expenses, the lies about the job. Vance took notes in a small notebook, nodding occasionally. "This is serious, Mrs. Eleanor," he said when I finished. "Very serious. But you are right to want solid proof before going to the police. Without concrete physical evidence, this could be seen as a family misunderstanding. We need that phone you found. We need recordings, and we need them to incriminate themselves." "How do we do that?" I asked, feeling a knot in my stomach. Vance looked at me with those serious eyes. "You are going to have to be the bait, Mrs. Eleanor. You are going to have to stay here and make Jessica think you suspect nothing, and at the same time, we are going to install surveillance equipment. I am going to need you to give me access to the house when Jessica is not here." "It's dangerous," I said. Vance nodded. "Yes, it is. But it is the only way to protect your son from making a terrible mistake defending this woman and to make sure Jessica and her accomplice go to prison for a long time. I have contacts in the police. Once we have the proof, they will act fast." "And Mason?" I asked. "I can't put him in danger." Vance closed his notebook. "Mason stays at school today after classes. I am going to arrange for one of the teachers to supervise him in extracurricular activities. He won't be here when things get tense. I promise you." The door opened and Jessica appeared with Mason ready with his backpack. "We are leaving," she said, looking at Vance with distrust. "I hope everything is in order with your legal matters, Eleanor." "Everything perfectly fine, Jessica," I told her. "Mr. Vance has been very helpful. Mason, come give Grandma a kiss." Mason ran toward me and I hugged him tight. "Behave well at school, my love," I whispered in his ear. "Everything is going to be okay." Jessica and Mason left. As soon as we heard the car drive away, Vance stood up. "We have approximately 6 hours before Jessica returns," he said, taking equipment out of his briefcase. "Let's get to work." Vance worked with an efficiency that left me breathless. He took small devices the size of buttons, tiny cameras, almost invisible microphones out of his briefcase. "We are going to start with the living room," he said. "That is where they likely have important conversations. Then the kitchen, the hallway, and the master bedroom. Can you do that without her noticing?" I asked nervously, watching him stick a microphone behind a picture frame. He nodded without stopping work. "I've been doing this for 20 years, Mrs. Eleanor. These people never notice anything because they are too busy planning their next move. Arrogance blinds them." We went up the stairs and entered Daniel and Jessica's room. My stomach twisted, invading my son's space like this, but I knew it was necessary. Vance installed a camera in the smoke detector on the ceiling and another microphone behind the vanity mirror. "Nobody looks up," he said. "It's the first rule. People always forget to look up." "I need that phone you mentioned to me," he said, pointing to the closet. "It is our best physical evidence." I reached toward the back of the closet where I had seen the phone hidden behind the shoe boxes. I put my hand in searching, but my fingers only touched empty space. It's not there, I murmured, feeling panic rise up my throat. It was here, right here 2 days ago. I searched frantically, moving boxes, shoes, clothes. Nothing. Jessica had moved it. Damn, whispered Vance. She must have suspected something. But don't worry, the messages are already sent. They already exist on some server. If we can access her main phone or her computer, we could recover them. Her computer is in her office, I said. We went down quickly. The laptop was closed on the desk. Vance opened it and immediately a screen appeared asking for a password. I need time, he said, taking out a small USB device. This is going to copy the whole hard drive, but it takes about an hour. Can you watch the window and let me know if you see Jessica's car approaching? I stood by the window with my heart beating in my ears, watching the empty street. The minutes dragged like hours. Every car that passed made me jump. Vance worked in silence, connecting cables, checking screens, murmuring to himself. Done, he said finally after what seemed like an eternity. I have everything. Emails, social media messages, search history. If there is something here, we are going to find it. He disconnected the cables, closed the laptop exactly as it was, and we moved to the kitchen. Now comes the riskiest part, said Vance, installing a small camera inside the stove hood. I need you to provoke a conversation with Jessica about money, about your inheritance. Make her talk. People like her can't resist bragging when they think they have control. I don't know if I can do that, I told him, feeling my confidence wobble. I am not an actress. What if she realizes I am provoking her? Vance put a hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Eleanor, you have been strong all this time. You have protected your grandson. You have investigated on your own. You have kept calm under incredible pressure. You can do this. You just need to make her mad a little. Angry people say truths they would normally hide. We finished the installation just in time. I heard the engine of Jessica's car approaching. Vance packed everything quickly into his briefcase. Remember, he said, walking toward the door. Tonight, family dinner. Bring up the topic of your will, of your properties. I will be monitoring everything from my van parked 2 blocks away. If something goes wrong, if you feel you are in danger, immediately say the word pumpkin. It is uncommon. No one uses it in normal conversation. This will be my signal to enter. Pumpkin, I repeated. He nodded and left just as Jessica was parking the car in front of the house. I saw him walk toward his vehicle with a casual step, as if he were any neighbor. Jessica entered with grocery bags. Did he leave already? Your lawyer? She asked, dropping the bags on the table with more force than necessary. Yes, I told her, helping her unpack. Everything got resolved. I just signed some documents about the renewal of my will. I saw her tense up. Oh? Your will? And does everything stay the same? Or did you make changes? Her tone was casual, but her eyes were alert, calculating. Well, you know how one is at my age, I said, following the script Vance had suggested. I want to make sure everything is in order for when I am not here. Daniel is my only son, so naturally everything goes to him. The house, the savings, the investments, everything. Jessica took cans out of the bag with mechanical movements. How generous you are, she said. Daniel is lucky to have a mother who thinks about his future. How much do you calculate everything is worth if it's not indiscreet? I swallowed hard. This was the moment. Well, the house was appraised recently at about $800,000, plus savings and investments. It probably hovers around $1 million. Maybe a little more. I saw her eyes shine. $1 million. That amount represented her freedom, her escape, her new life with Trent, and I was the only thing standing in her way. Wow, she said, trying to sound impressed. That is a lot of money. Daniel hadn't told me you came from such a well-off family. You have worked hard all your life, I suppose. All my life, I replied. My husband and I saved every penny. We lived modestly, invested wisely, all to leave something to our son so he and his family would have security. And his family, repeated Jessica. That includes Mason and me too, right? We are family now. I looked at her directly. Of course, Jessica. You are Daniel's family. When I die, everything will be his and he will decide what to do with it. When you die, she repeated slowly. And when do you expect that to be? I mean, you are 63 years old. You could live another 30 years easily. Her voice had a strange tone, almost resentful. Well, one never knows, I said, shrugging my shoulders. My mother lived until 92. Good genetics, I suppose. I could be here bothering everyone for a long time yet. I laughed, trying to sound natural. Jessica didn't laugh. Yes, she said, squeezing a can of tomatoes with such force her knuckles turned white. A long time. The silence that followed was dense and uncomfortable. Then she smiled that fake smile. Well, it's good you have your health, Eleanor. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to make some work calls. She went toward her office and closed the door. I let out the air I had been holding. My hands were shaking. I had done it. I had planted the seed. Now I just had to wait to see what grew from it. Daniel arrived at 6 in the evening with Mason. My son looked exhausted with cement stains on his work pants and deep circles under his eyes. Mason ran toward me and I hugged him tight. How was school, my love? Good, Grandma, he whispered in my ear. The teacher told me a man named Vance talked to her. She says I can stay in the art club after school tomorrow. That's great, I told him, kissing his forehead. You are going to love it. Daniel dropped onto the sofa. Mom, I'm dead, he said. Today was a day from hell. The contractor quit, the electrician didn't show up, and the client is threatening to sue us. And on top of that, Jessica has been weird all afternoon. I tried to talk to her, but she locked herself in her office. Maybe she just had a bad day, I suggested, knowing very well that Jessica's bad day was because of me. Daniel sighed. Lately all her days are bad, Mom. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel she drifts further away every time. Sometimes I think she regrets having married me. My heart broke for my son. Oh, my son, I told him, sitting next to him. Don't say that. But in my mind, I thought, if only you knew the truth. If only you knew she never loved you, that everything was a lie, that right now she is planning your destruction. Jessica appeared for dinner with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I made roast chicken, she announced. I hope you are hungry. We sat down, the four of us, around the table. Mason pushed the food around his plate. Daniel ate in silence, lost in his thoughts. Jessica watched me like a hawk, studying every move I made. Then Daniel spoke, breaking the tense silence. Mom, you mentioned something about renewing your will. Is everything okay? Yes, son, everything perfect, I replied. I just wanted to make sure the papers were up to date. You know, at my age, one thinks about these things. Jessica dropped her fork, and the sound of metal against the plate resonated like a gunshot in the silence. Daniel looked up, surprised by his wife's reaction. Sorry, she said, picking up the fork with trembling hands. It slipped. Daniel looked at her with concern. Are you okay, honey? You look pale. She nodded, taking a sip of water. I'm fine. It's just, I've had a lot of work lately. Stress, you know. I decided to press a little more, following Vance's instructions. In fact, Daniel, I continued, as if nothing happened, I was telling Jessica this afternoon about the appraisal of the house. $800,000. Can you believe it? Your father and I bought it for $120,000 30 years ago. Daniel whistled, impressed. Wow, Mom, that is incredible. I never thought it was worth that much. It is a big responsibility. I said, someday, when I am not here, all that responsibility will be yours. Mom, don't talk like that, said Daniel, uncomfortable. You are going to live many more years. Don't say those things. But I noticed how Jessica leaned forward with shining eyes, absorbing every word like a sponge. I am just being practical, son, I told him. At my age, you have to be. That is why I am glad to know you will be okay financially. You will be able to give Mason the education he deserves, maybe expand your business. The possibilities are infinite. I saw how Jessica's mind worked, calculating, adding up, imagining. Daniel is very hardworking, she said with a sweet voice. He deserves something good after so much effort. We all deserve something good, right, Eleanor? Absolutely, Jessica, I replied, maintaining eye contact with her. We all deserve what we earn honestly. There was a subtle emphasis on the word honestly, and I saw her catch it. Her eyes narrowed just perceptibly. The rest of the dinner passed in a tense silence. Mason finished quickly and asked permission to go to his room. Daniel helped clear the table and then announced he had to review some blueprints in his study. Jessica and I were left alone in the kitchen. She was washing dishes with abrupt movements. Water splashed the sink. Her shoulders were tense. Finally, she spoke without turning to look at me. "You know, Eleanor, there is something that has always bothered me about this family." "What is that, Jessica?" I asked, drying a glass. She turned off the water and turned toward me. "The way you have so much control over everything. The money, the decisions, Daniel's future. He is 38 years old, but he still acts as if he needed your approval for every single thing." I felt like I was slapped. "I don't control my son," I said, trying to keep calm. "I only want the best for him." Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in that sound. "The best for him or the best for you? Because from my point of view, it seems you want to keep him tied to you forever." "That is not true," I protested. "Then why have you never given us money for a down payment on our own house?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Why do you keep all that money for when you are dead instead of helping your son now when he really needs it?" There it was, the real Jessica coming out of hiding. "Daniel has never asked me for money," I said. "If he needed it, I would be happy to help him." Jessica snorted. "Of course he hasn't asked. Because you raised him to be too proud to ask for help. Very convenient for you, right?" "I am not going to argue with you, Jessica," I said, turning around to leave the kitchen. She grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug into my skin with force. "Don't you dare turn your back on me," she hissed. "You think you are so perfect, so superior. But I see the truth. You are a selfish old woman who can't let go of her son." "Let go of me," I said with a cold voice. She squeezed harder. "I am going to tell you something, Eleanor. Daniel is mine now. Mason is mine. This house will soon be mine. And you are going to have to accept that you are no longer necessary here. In fact, it would be better for everyone if you simply left and didn't come back." I broke free from her grip with more strength than I thought I had. "Careful, Jessica," I warned her. "You are showing your true face." She smiled, and it was a cold, calculating smile. "My true face. You have no idea what I am capable of, Eleanor, but you are going to find out very soon." I went up the stairs with shaking legs. I entered my room and locked the door. I took out my phone and sent a message to Vance. "She is losing control. She just threatened me directly." His answer came immediately. "Perfect. I have it all recorded. Now we need to wait for her to make her move. Remember, tomorrow Mason stays in after-school activities. You pretend everything is normal. She is going to contact Trent, and when she does, we will catch them." I sat on the bed, hugging my knees. My phone vibrated again. It was a message from Jessica intended for someone else, but accidentally she had sent it to me. It said, "Tomorrow. I can't wait any longer. The old lady ruined everything with her questions. We have to act tomorrow." My blood froze. She deleted the message immediately, but I managed to read it. I took a screenshot and sent it to Vance. "She just moved up the plan," I wrote. "It is tomorrow, not Wednesday. Tomorrow." "Damn," replied Vance. "It's okay. We can handle this. Tomorrow keep Mason at school, whatever happens. I am going to be outside the house with my team and with the police on standby. When Trent arrives, we are going to catch them red-handed. And if something goes wrong," I wrote with trembling fingers, "if she tries something before Trent arrives, that is why I am going to give you this," he replied. "Tomorrow morning I am going to pass by as if I were a delivery guy. I am going to hand you an envelope. Inside there is a small panic device. If you press it, we are going to be there in less than 2 minutes. We won't leave you alone, not even for a second." I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed sitting in bed listening to every noise in the house. At 3 a.m, I heard steps in the hallway. They stopped in front of my door. The doorknob moved slowly. I held my breath. The door was locked. I heard Jessica curse in a low voice and then her steps walking away. My heart beat so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. She had tried to enter my room in the middle of the night. What would she have done if the door weren't locked? Dawn arrived, finally painting the sky orange and pink. I got up, showered, and dressed in comfortable clothes. Slacks, jeans, sneakers. If I had to run, I wanted to be prepared. I went down to the kitchen, and Jessica was already there, making coffee. "Good morning, Eleanor," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Did you sleep well? I heard your door was locked last night." Do you feel unsafe? Very well, thank you, I lied, pouring coffee. It's just habit. In my house, I always lock the door. What a shame, she said, adding sugar to her cup. Because here we are, family. Families don't need locks between them, unless they have something to hide. She looked directly at me and I knew she knew. She knew that I knew. It was a dangerous game and both of us had hidden cards. The doorbell rang at 7:30. Jessica went to open it and returned with an envelope. It's for you, Eleanor, she said, handing it to me. The delivery guy said it was urgent. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, there was a paper that said insurance documents and taped underneath a small, round device the size of a coin. The panic button. Everything in order? Asked Jessica, trying to see the contents. Yes, I said, closing the envelope. Just boring policy renewals. I put the envelope in my pocket, feeling the weight of the device like a lifeline. Daniel came running down the stairs, knotting his tie. I'm late, he shouted. That conference starts at 9, and traffic is going to be terrible. Mom, watch Mason until Jessica takes him to school. Jessica, don't forget I have that dinner with clients tonight. I am going to be super late. He kissed Jessica quickly, gave me a hug, and ran out. The sound of his car driving away was like a countdown. Now we were alone, Jessica, Mason, and I. Mason came down the stairs, dragging his backpack with eyes swollen from sleep. Good morning, Grandma, he murmured, hugging my waist. I don't want to go to school today. My tummy hurts. Jessica turned abruptly from the stove where she was making eggs. Don't be dramatic, Mason, she said with a sharp voice. You have to go to school. You can't stay here all day bothering us. I looked at him and saw real fear in his eyes. It wasn't that he didn't want to go to school. It was that he didn't want to leave me alone with his mother. This 7-year-old boy understood the danger better than my own adult son. You know what, Mason? I told him, stroking his hair. Today you have that art club after school, right? The one I told you about yesterday. His eyes lit up a little. Yes, Grandma. The teacher said we are going to make sculptures with clay. Perfect. Then you are going to have an incredible day, I said, smiling, although my heart was breaking. And when you come home, I am going to have a surprise for you. He looked at me with those perceptive eyes. What surprise, Grandma? It's a secret, I whispered. But it is going to be something very special, I promise. What I didn't tell him is that the surprise was that we were going to be free, that his mother was going to be in a cell, and finally he could breathe without fear. Jessica took Mason to school, and I stayed alone in the house. Immediately I took out my phone and called Vance. I am here, he said, parked a block away. I have a full view of the entrance. My team is positioned, and the police are on standby 5 minutes away. How do you feel? Terrified, I admitted. Brave, he replied. What you are doing, Mrs. Eleanor, is incredibly brave. Now listen carefully. Check that the back doors are unlocked. If something goes wrong, you need an escape route. And keep that panic button in your pocket at all times. I did what he said. I checked the back door that led to the garden. It was unlocked. I looked around, searching for possible hiding places. The closet under the stairs, the guest bathroom, the basement. Options. I needed options. Jessica returned 40 minutes later. She entered with the phone glued to her ear, talking in a low voice. Yes, he already left. Daniel isn't coming back until tonight, and the kid stays in activities until 5. We have all afternoon. Silence while she listened. Then come now. The sooner we finish this, the better. She hung up and found me standing in the entrance of the kitchen. Did you hear any of that? She asked with brazenness. She didn't try to dissimulate. She didn't care anymore. I heard someone is coming, I said, deciding to be direct too. Who is it, Jessica? Who is coming to this house while my son is not here? She smiled, and it was the coldest smile I have seen in my life. Someone who is going to help me solve a problem that has gone too long without a solution. I am that problem, right? I said, feeling adrenaline run through my veins. She shrugged. You said it, not me. You know, Eleanor, you could have made it easy. You could have gone home and waited calmly for nature to take its course. But no, you had to come here, stick your nose in everything, make questions. You discovered I don't work in any office, I said. I discovered many things, Jessica, like your lover, Trent, like your plans to keep my money. how you have been slowly poisoning the relationship between Daniel and me." She applauded slowly. "Bravo. You are smarter than I thought. Then you know this isn't going to end well for you. You should run, Eleanor. You should go out that door and go very far away." My hand was in my pocket squeezing the panic button. But not yet. I needed more. I needed her to confess everything with details while the cameras recorded. "And Daniel?" I asked. "What about my son? Do you love him even a little?" Jessica laughed, and the sound was like broken glass. "Love Daniel? Please. Daniel is a fool. A simple and boring man who works like a donkey for crumbs. I married him because I investigated and knew his mommy had money. That is all. It was a means to an end." "And Mason?" I whispered, feeling tears burn in my eyes. "Your own son." She hesitated for the first time. "Mason is different," she said with a softer voice. "Mason wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident. But he is here now, and I guess I got used to him. Anyway, Trent and I don't want small children, so Daniel can probably keep him when we divorce later." "After what?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "After you have your accident, Eleanor," said Jessica, walking toward me. "After the poor old lady takes her sleeping pills, feels dizzy, and falls down the stairs, breaking her neck. What a tragedy, right? And Daniel will inherit everything, and I, as his loving wife, will be there to console him." A car parked outside. Jessica looked out the window and her face lit up. "He's here," Trent said. "And now begins your end, Eleanor. You could have lived a few more years. You could have died old and peaceful in your bed, but you chose to meddle in what didn't concern you." The door opened, and the man in the black suit entered. Trent. Tall, dark-haired, with cold eyes that evaluated me as if I were cattle. "Is this her, the old lady?" he asked. Jessica nodded. "This is her. More problematic than expected, but nothing we can't handle." Trent took a bottle out of his pocket. "Here are the pills," he said. "Enough to knock her out in 10 minutes. Then we push her down the stairs and call 911 crying. Simple and effective." Jessica took the bottle and approached me. "We are going to do it one of two ways, Eleanor," she said. "You can take the pills voluntarily and fall asleep calmly before falling. Or Trent is going to force them down your throat, and it is going to be much less pleasant. You choose." My hand found the panic button in my pocket. "There is a third option," I said with a firmer voice than I felt. "You could turn yourselves in now before this gets worse." Both laughed. Trent came closer. "I think we are going to have to do it by force," he said. Then I pressed the button. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Jessica snatched the phone from my other pocket. "Who are you calling?" she shouted. "Nobody," I replied. "But it is already too late for you guys." She looked at my phone confused. There were no outgoing calls. "Then what did you do?" Trent grabbed my arm. "It doesn't matter anymore," he said. "Let's make it quick." He dragged me toward the stairs, and I resisted with all my strength. I struggled, kicked, screamed. He was stronger, but I wasn't going to make things easy for him. Then we heard the sirens. Trent froze. Jessica ran to the window. "No, no, no," she screamed. "How is it possible?" Outside, 3 police cruisers parked in front of the house. Vance got out of his van with a vest that said "Investigator." The officers surrounded the house. "Let her go, Trent," screamed Jessica. "We have to leave out the back." He let me go, and they ran toward the kitchen. But when they opened the back door, there were 2 officers waiting with guns drawn. "Hands up," ordered one of them. "You are both under arrest." I let myself fall to the living room floor, shaking uncontrollably. Vance came running in and kneeled next to me. "It's okay, Mrs. Eleanor," he said with a gentle voice. "It's over. They are arrested." "You are safe," Jessica was screaming while they handcuffed her. "This is a mistake, officer," she shouted. "I am the owner of this house. You are invading my property." The officer arresting her read her rights, while she kept protesting. Trent, on the other hand, was silent with a clenched jaw and eyes full of hate looking at me. A detective entered and introduced himself as Detective Sullivan. "Missus, Eleanor, I need you to tell me everything," he said, taking out a recorder. From the beginning. I took a deep breath and began. I told him every detail, the messages, the notebook, the threats, the plan, everything. Jessica listened from where she was handcuffed, and her face went from anger to disbelief to something resembling panic. "You were watching me," she whispered. "All this time you were hunting me." "I was just protecting myself," I replied. "And protecting my family," Detective Sullivan nodded. "We have enough evidence for multiple charges," he said. "Attempted premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud. They are going to spend a long time in prison." Vance helped me sit on the sofa while the officers took Jessica and Trent handcuffed out of the house. Jessica was screaming that everything was a lie, that I was crazy, that she was the victim. Trent kept his head down, knowing there was no way out of this. Detective Sullivan sat in front of me with his notebook open. "Missus, Eleanor, I need you to explain how you knew they planned to attack you specifically today." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my heart that was still beating like a war drum. "Jessica sent me a message last night, by accident," I said. "It said they had to act today, that they couldn't wait any longer." I showed him the screenshot I had saved. The detective photographed it with his phone. "And the recordings?" he asked. Vance intervened. "I have everything, Detective. Complete conversations where Jessica admits she married Daniel only for the money, where she plans the murder of Mrs. Eleanor, where Trent details the method they would use. Everything is documented with date and time." The detective nodded, satisfied. "This is a solid case. They are going down for a long time. But now we need to talk about your son, Daniel. He is going to need to know all this, and it is not going to be easy for him." My heart shrank. Daniel. My poor son who worked tirelessly, who loved his wife, who trusted blindly. How was I going to tell him everything had been a lie? That the woman with whom he shared a bed planned to kill me? That his marriage was a cruel farce? "I am going to tell him," I said with a firm voice. "He is my son. I need to be the one to tell him." The detective nodded. "Okay, but I am going to need to talk to him too. It is important he understands he is not under suspicion. From everything we have investigated, he knew nothing." "Nothing," confirmed Vance. "Daniel is a victim in this too. Jessica manipulated him from day one. She chose an honest, hard-working man who wouldn't question too much. Someone with a wealthy mother and no other siblings to complicate the inheritance." I stood up with trembling legs. "I have to go get Mason," I said. "He can't find out about this at school. I need to bring him home to explain what I can without traumatizing him more than necessary." Vance offered to take me. We got into his van, and while he drove toward the school, he explained everything he had discovered. "Jessica isn't really named Jessica," he said. "Her real name is Ashley Bennett. She has a record for fraud in 2 different states. She changes her name, uses fake documents, marries men who have something she wants, and then disappears. Sometimes with their money, sometimes something worse." "Something worse?" I asked, feeling nauseous. Vance gripped the steering wheel. "There was a case 8 years ago. A 65-year-old man, rich widower, no children. He married her, and 6 months later died falling down the stairs of his house. They could never prove anything. It was ruled an accident. She inherited everything and disappeared." "My God," I whispered. "Then she has done this before." Vance nodded. "Trent is her partner from years ago. He is the one who investigates potential victims. They get financial data, create psychological profiles. They are like predators, studying their prey before attacking." "And Daniel fell straight into their trap," I said, feeling rage and sadness mix in my chest. "My son, my poor innocent son. He only wanted love, wanted a family, and she saw that and used it against him." We arrived at the school, and I entered the main office. I explained to the principal that I needed to take Mason for a family emergency. She looked at me with concern but didn't ask questions. She called the classroom, and minutes later, Mason appeared with his backpack and eyes wide open. "Grandma, what happened?" he asked, running toward me. "Are you okay?" "I am fine, my love," I told him, hugging him tight. "But we need to talk, you and I. Let's go home." In the van, Mason sat between Vance and me in silence. His little hands squeezed mine tightly. Finally, he spoke with a small voice. "They took Mom away, right, Grandma?" I nodded. "How do you know, my love?" "Because last night I heard her say ugly things about you," he said with tears rolling down his cheeks. She said you were going to have an accident, and I was so scared, Grandma. So scared something would happen to you. I hugged him while he cried against my shoulder, my brave boy who had carried so much weight on his small shoulders. Nothing happened to me, Mason, I whispered. I am here. I am fine. And you are safe now, too. When we arrived at the house, there was still a patrol car parked outside. We entered, and an officer informed us they had finished collecting evidence. The house was officially a crime scene, but we could stay there. We just shouldn't touch Jessica's office or her room until they finished processing. I took Mason to the living room, and we sat together on the sofa. Vance said goodbye discreetly, saying he would be available if we needed him. I thanked him for everything he had done, knowing I owed him my life. Now came the hardest part. Waiting for Daniel. Explaining the hell we had just escaped. Destroying his world to be able to rebuild it. Mason fell asleep in my lap, exhausted by the stress and emotions. I took him to his bed and tucked him in, kissing his forehead. This child had been stronger than any adult I knew. He had trusted me when his own father couldn't see the truth. At 8 at night, I heard Daniel's car. My stomach twisted. He entered whistling with his briefcase in hand. "Hi, Mom," he called out. "Sorry I'm late. The dinner with clients ran long. Where is Jessica? Where is Mason?" "Daniel, come sit down," I said with a serious voice. He looked at me, confused by my tone. "What's wrong, Mom? Are you okay? You look pale." "Sit down, son," I repeated. "I need to tell you something, and it is going to be very hard to hear." He sat slowly in the armchair in front of me, with fear starting to reflect in his eyes. "Mom, you're scaring me. What is happening? Where is my wife?" "Jessica was arrested today," I said bluntly. There was no soft way to say it. Daniel froze, as if not processing the words. "What did you say finally? What does that mean, arrested? Why?" "This has to be a mistake. For attempted murder," I replied. "For conspiracy to kill me and keep my inheritance." The color disappeared from his face. Daniel stood up with hands shaking. "This is crazy," he said. "Mom, what are you saying? Jessica wouldn't do something like that. She loves me. We love our family. There must be a terrible misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding, son," I told him. And then I told him everything. Every painful detail. The messages with Trent. The secret phone. The notebook with the plan. The lies about her job. The threats. Everything. Daniel dropped to his knees, crying like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. "No, no, no," he repeated over and over. "This can't be real. She can't have been lying all this time. I love her, Mom. I love her so much." My heart broke for him. I kneeled beside him and hugged him while he sobbed against my shoulder. "I know, son," I whispered. "I know you loved her. But she didn't love you. She used you, and I am so sorry. Sorry for not seeing this sooner. Sorry for not being able to protect you from this pain." Mason appeared on the stairs, rubbing his eyes. "Dad," he whispered. Daniel looked up toward his son with a shattered face. Mason ran down and threw himself into his father's arms. The two cried together while I surrounded them with my arms, trying to keep what was left of our family together. That night, none of us slept. Daniel asked 1,000 questions. How did I not realize? How could I be so blind? There were signs, right, Mom? There must have been signs I ignored. I assured him that Jessica was an expert, that this was what she did, that she had fooled others before him. Detective Sullivan arrived at 10 at night to take Daniel's statement. My son was in shock, answering questions mechanically. He had noticed Jessica spent a lot. He didn't know she didn't really work. He never suspected anything until his mother told him everything. "Jessica and Trent are going to be formally charged tomorrow," said the detective. "They are going to request bail. But with the gravity of the charges and flight risk, I don't think they will grant it. Daniel, you are going to need to get a lawyer too. For the divorce, to protect your assets. This woman is going to try to take everything she can." Daniel nodded with empty eyes. He didn't look like my strong, hard-working son anymore. He looked like a broken man. Days passed like in a fog. Daniel had to take time off work. He couldn't concentrate. He barely ate. He spent his time looking at wedding photos, wondering how much had been real. Mason became quieter, more attached to me. He had nightmares where his mom chased him. The child psychologist I hired said he would need therapy for a long time. that this type of betrayal from a mother figure left deep scars. 1 week after the arrest, I received a call from the district attorney. "Mrs. Eleanor," he said, "Jessica wants to make a deal. She is willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. Trent is doing the same. Both want to avoid trial. How much time are they going to spend in prison?" I asked the DA, pressing the phone against my ear. He paused before answering. "With the deal, Jessica would receive 15 years without the possibility of parole for the first 10. Trent 18 years because he has prior records more serious than we knew." 15 years, I repeated, "after trying to kill me, after destroying my family. Only 15 years. "I understand your frustration, Mrs. Eleanor," said the DA with a sympathetic voice. "But without the deal, this could go to trial, and trials are unpredictable. With this guilty plea, we guarantee they pay for what they did." "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Your testimony," he replied. "You and your family will have to appear at the sentencing hearing. The judge will want to hear how this crime has affected you. Your words can influence the final sentence." I told Daniel that afternoon. He was sitting on the sofa with a lost gaze, as he had been the last few days. When I told him Jessica had confessed and accepted a deal, something changed in his face. There was no longer denial, only painful acceptance of reality. "I want to be there," he said with a hoarse voice. "When they sentence her, I want to be there and look her in the eyes. I need to close this chapter, Mom." I nodded, understanding that was part of his healing process, however painful it was. The following weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers' meetings and endless paperwork. Daniel initiated divorce proceedings. Jessica signed the papers without fighting. Her lawyer had advised her to cooperate on everything. The house remained completely in Daniel's name. She waived all her rights to any property. Mason started therapy 3 times a week. At first, he didn't want to talk, but little by little Dr. Hernandez managed to get him to open up. She told me Mason had confessed that his mom sometimes scared him, that there were nights where she entered his room and just looked at him without saying anything. My heart broke every time I discovered a new layer of trauma that child had suffered, but I also saw his resilience. I saw how little by little he returned to smiling, to playing, to being a normal boy. Daniel also started therapy. His psychologist explained he had been a victim of narcissistic manipulation. Finally, the day of the sentencing hearing arrived. It was a gray November Monday. Daniel, Mason, and I entered the courtroom together with Vance, who had come to support us. The room was cold and impersonal, with cream-colored walls and rows of wooden benches. Jessica entered handcuffed, dressed in an orange prison uniform. She looked different, her hair unkempt, her face without makeup. She was no longer the perfectly presented woman I knew. She was someone ordinary, stripped of all her acting. Her eyes searched for me in the audience, and when our gazes crossed, I saw something that could have been shame. Trent entered after, also handcuffed. He didn't look at anyone. He kept his head down, as he had done since his arrest. The judge entered, and we all stood up. He was an older man with white hair and a serious expression. He sat down and started reviewing the case documents. "We have reviewed the guilty plea of both defendants," he said with a deep voice that resonated in the room. "But before proceeding with the sentence, I would like to hear victim impact statements. Mrs. Eleanor, please come to the front." I stood up with trembling legs. I walked toward the stand and stood in front of the microphone. I took a deep breath and started speaking. "Your Honor, I came to my son's house hoping to spend quality time with my family. Instead, I discovered that my daughter-in-law had planned my murder to steal my inheritance." My voice cracked, but I continued. "That woman not only planned to kill me, she manipulated my son for years. She terrorized my 7-year-old grandson. She destroyed the trust of an entire family. I had to hide in a closet with my grandson, fearing for our lives." I looked directly at Jessica. She held my gaze this time, without looking away. "What hurts the most," I continued, "is not that you tried to kill me. It's that you betrayed a good man who truly loved you. That you used an innocent child as a pawn in your cruel game." The judge nodded and indicated I could return to my seat. Then he called Daniel. My son stood up and walked toward the front. He looked thinner, older than he was. Pain had left visible marks on his face. "Your Honor," started Daniel with a trembling voice. I married that woman believing I had found the love of my life. I worked day and night to give her a good life. And now I discover everything was a lie, that she never loved me, that she only saw me as a means to get to my mother's money. He paused, wiping away tears. My son asks me why Mom doesn't live with us. How do I explain to a 7-year-old boy that his mother is a criminal, that she planned to kill his grandmother? Daniel looked at Jessica directly. You took years of my life, he said. Years I wasted loving someone who never existed. But I am not going to let you destroy what is left of my family. We are going to heal. We are going to move forward. He returned to sit next to me. I took his hand and squeezed it. The judge looked at Jessica. Mrs. Bennett, do you have anything to say before I pass sentence? Jessica stood up with the chains of her handcuffs jingling. She looked toward us, and for the first time, I saw something genuine in her expression. I regret what I did, she said with a barely audible voice. I regret having hurt innocent people. I have no excuse for my actions. Daniel, you deserve someone better. Mason deserves a better mother. Eleanor, I am sorry. I only hope someday you can forgive me, although I don't deserve that forgiveness. The judge ordered her to sit and took a moment to review his notes. Finally, he spoke. I have reviewed this case exhaustively. The premeditation, the prolonged deception, the use of a minor as a tool of manipulation. All this speaks of a dangerous person. Mrs. Bennett, I sentence you to 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole for the first 14 years. Additionally, you must pay full restitution to the family. Jessica showed no emotion. She only nodded, accepting her fate. Mr. Trent, continued the judge, you have a history that shows a pattern of this type of behavior. I sentence you to 22 years in prison without the possibility of parole for the first 18 years. The officers took them out of the room, and thus ended that dark chapter of our lives. We left the courthouse, and the sun was shining outside, contrasting with the darkness we had left inside. Mason took my hand. It's over, Grandma, he asked. Can we be calm now? Yes, my love, I told him, kneeling to get to his level. It's over. We are safe now. The following months were of slow but steady rebuilding. Daniel sold the house. He said he couldn't live there with so many painful memories. He bought a smaller, cozier one in a quiet neighborhood. I helped them with the down payment, using part of those savings Jessica coveted so much. I moved in with them temporarily to help with Mason, while Daniel adapted to being a single father. We established new routines. Breakfasts every morning, dinners without phones or distractions, game nights on Fridays. Little by little, the house filled with real laughter, with genuine moments. Mason started to improve notably. His therapist said he was processing the trauma in a healthy way. He went back to being that happy boy I knew, although now with a maturity he shouldn't have at his age. He told me I was his hero, that I had saved the family. Daniel also healed, although more slowly. He went on some dates, but nothing serious. He said he needed time to learn to trust again. His therapist helped him identify signs of manipulation to establish healthy boundaries. 1 year after the arrest, we were having dinner, the three of us, when Daniel said something that surprised me. Mom, I think I can finally say I am grateful. I looked at him confused. Grateful for what, son? Because this united us more as a family, he explained. Because Mason and I have a stronger relationship now. And because you, Mom, showed me what true love is. Love that protects, that sacrifices, that doesn't give up even when it is scared. Tears rolled down my cheeks. Mason got up and hugged us both. I love you guys, he said with that beautiful simplicity of children. I love you so much. And I love you too, I replied. My real family. Today, Mason is 12 years old. He is a bright, compassionate boy, with dreams of being a detective like Vance. He says he wants to help protect other people from bad guys. Daniel met someone 6 months ago. A woman named Vanessa, who is a teacher and single mother too. They are going slow, building trust little by little. I went back to my house but visit them every week. We have dinner together on Sundays, and it is my favorite moment. Seeing my son smile genuinely. Seeing my grandson grow strong and confident. Knowing we survived the storm and came out more united. Sometimes I think about those days of terror. In the dark closet with Mason trembling against me. In Jessica's threats. in how close we were to disaster. But I also think about what I discovered about myself. That at my 63 years I still have the strength to fight. I learned that true danger never comes from strangers on the street. It comes from who sleeps next to your family, from who sits at your table, from who smiles while planning your destruction. But I also learned that true love is stronger than any deception. And that is the lesson I teach Mason now. Don't be afraid to trust, I tell him, but trust smartly. Listen to your gut, protect those you love, and never underestimate the power of a grandmother who would do anything for her family. Because in the end, that was what saved us. Not the police, nor the detective, nor the hidden cameras. It was love. The love that made me stay when I wanted to run. The love that gave me courage to face danger. The love that kept us together when everything was falling apart. And that love, my family, my real home, is worth more than all the millions of dollars in the world. Jessica never understood that. And that is why, even though she is in prison and I am free, I am the one who really won. Because I have something she never had and never will have. I have a family that loves me for real, and that is the most valuable treasure that exists.